of their room, and they're playing nice. Yes.
They were let out of their room. Involving the Lakers, again, breaking news. There we go, right? Kawhi Leonard wanting out of San Antonio. ESPN's Chris Haynes reporting Leonard has grown so frustrated with how the Spurs handled his injury this past season, he has decided to seek his walking papers. And here's an interesting layer to this that Chris also tweeted about. This is about Kawhi giving up the Supermax money to seek a trade, because obviously, and we've been talking about this for months, if he had stayed with San Antonio, or he's not gone yet, but if he somehow would stay with San Antonio going forward, he would be eligible for that $219 million, which would be part of that Supermax extension, which, by the way, the new collective bargaining agreement was designed to keep this exact thing from happening. After Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City, there was a different updated new extended CBA. This provision was added in so guys like Kawhi Leonard would sign with their teams. Instead, he is deciding for other reasons he would like to seek a trade. So there's about a $30 million difference there. But, Byron, look, we've talked about this all year with other guys, too. Once you're getting $188 million and you're getting shoe money and you might be going to a big market like L.A. or Boston or wherever he might end up, $30 million to trade for your happiness as an NBA player, maybe once you got that much money, $30 million is a lot to me.
It's a lot to us. But again, we talked about this earlier with Kawhi. He's a different type of guy. I don't think money drives him. It's all about people that he can trust, people that he knows have their back, have his back, I should say, and people that he feels comfortable around. So I don't think money is going to ever be the issue with this kid. I agree with you as far as if he goes to a bigger market, L.A., then he can make up a lot of that money from...
Use that TV time.
I'm just saying. He goes to L.A. I know he got a shoe deal right now that's paying him about $5 million. They'll end up probably paying him like $20 million, like all the other top players in this league.
Well, that's another interesting wrinkle, because he could have extended his Jordan Brand shoe deal earlier this year. They didn't end up working out terms, and the feeling was maybe he would make that money up somewhere else if he went to a different market. Yeah,
but the other thing that we're discounting, Kevin, this, that state taxes in San Antonio is a lot different than it is here in California, too. So, I mean, he might make it up on one end, but he's going to end up losing a little bit of it. But I think for him, again, it's not about the money. It's about his peace of mind and being in an organization that he feels comfortable with and that he can trust, that he feels trusts him. And again, all those things that I think happened during the regular season has brought us to this point with Kawhi where he says, I can't do this anymore.
A couple of considerations, 4 years versus 5 years, so he will make up some of that $30 million on the back end. I mean, and you said it, we're at the point where the amount of wealth that is involved is such that, hey, we saw Kevin Durant take a lot less money.
Absolutely.
And people are considering situational factors over financial factors. Because, again, when you get to a certain level, relatively speaking, happiness does prevail.
Well, I mean, I've been quizzing Tracy McGrady on this all year because it's such this is a made kind of fascinating conversation to me of like, okay, when you have this much money, how much is enough that you then can discount it to then go to other money. I am also interested, though, in the war this now sets up in some ways between the Lakers and the Celtics, because those are the two teams that just in this short hour or two have already come to the fore in terms of teams that will be really throwing trade offers at the Spurs. Does Greg Popovich have any interest in helping the LA Lakers? Probably not. When you're talking about Danny Ainge in a room trying to convince you of things versus Magic Johnson. Look, the Lakers, Jeannie Buss wanted Magic involved because she and Magic have great trust, but also because she wanted Magic involved to help convince potential free agents, or in this category, guys who want to get traded out of a situation. Hey, I'm Magic Johnson. You can trust me. Come play with me. You've got Danny Ainge, though, on the other side. Obviously a great luminary in the league, too. What can you enlighten us on the Popovich sort of Lakers, where that stands, too, with how much he might want to help them?
I mean, given the history, given his indignation over the Pau Gasol trade that may or may not still be present, given that they are in the Western Conference, I don't see Greg Popovich, all things being equal, endowing this Lakers team with that kind of asset. I mean, one thing I do want to ask, I think we make too much of this, who's good in the room. Michael Jordan owns the Charlotte Hornets. Michael freaking Jordan. Michael Jordan, who essentially designed the image and the icon of the modern NBA athlete, the modern athlete, period. Is anybody on his doorstep? I just think that this in-the-room thing is so overrated.
It's a closer, though. I mean, I don't think you're going to a bad team because even if Michael's in the room, but, I mean, If you
Well, again, if Michael comes in the room just like Magic Johnson comes into a room, you're going to get attention. I mean, obviously, the player is going to look and be like, whoa, this is Michael Jordan or this is Magic Johnson. You know, you're going to be overwhelmed for
Danny
certain, or Danny Ainge for a certain amount of time. So I think that does have a wow factor when it comes to trying to convince a player to come to Los Angeles or to come to Charlotte, wherever the case may be. But at the end of the day, like you said, the player is going to try to make the best decision for him. I think Pop does not want to make the Lakers a better basketball team. And I think Boston would love to help him not do that as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of plays out. But at the end of the day, you're taking a chance with Kawhi, because if you do trade him, that team that he gets, he can be gone after a year.
Right, and you're talking about potentially giving up a lot of assets. And also, as I like to tell everyone, don't ever trade with Danny Ainge because he is so good at it.
Deal, yes.
Now, maybe R.C. Buford and Pop are like the one other sort of category of people I would say are savvy enough to sort of make sure it's an even deal. But Boston fans are the first ones to tell you they've got a magician in their corner. Can you just tell me what you've been getting from texts? You said you've been texting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Nobody feels the Spurs are over barrel. No one feels like, oh, well, Kawhi's named his destination. Their hand is forced. They can't bring him back. He's under contract for another year, but that would be misery. I mean, I think there's a sense that they can be patient. They can hold out. There will be other teams that are emboldened as players drop off the free agent market. Again, I think there's also a sense this isn't going to happen in the next week or so. But again, this is just a poll. I mean, I do want to say that celebrities help in the room, but I think it's the quality of the vision. I mean, the reason Danny Ainge is Danny Ainge is he articulates and delineates a series of principles about what happens when you come to the Boston Celtics. I mean, yeah, he was a former pro and he's won championships, but I do think the quality of the vision, I think, yes, Magic, it's much greater than zero. I mean, the presence of the person in the room is something, but I just think it's the quality of the vision.
I think the timing of this is so fascinating, too, because, again, if this trade, whatever it is, happens before free agency and maybe in concert in back rooms, not that ever happens in the NBA. No one talks to each other. There's no tampering. No one ever has any idea of any future plans. But just for saying, if this trade happens before the free agency market sort of pops at the beginning of July, that is a very different question of dominoes and where they're falling and players who may have and are allowed to talk to each other versus the Spurs, who, as you said, have a say in this. Kawhi doesn't get to go anywhere until they say he does.
Right.
So it might be that LeBron James or Chris Paul or Paul George are forced to make these decisions without knowing where Kawhi Leonard is. And by the way, it's not just, oh, gee, would we come to a team that he plays on? If Kawhi might be going to Boston and you're LeBron and you're deciding, do I want to go to the West or do I want to stay in the East? Which side is more competitive has changed even with that equation. So there's so many things going on here.
Greg Popovich is not going to convenience 29 other teams. That's the thing. And why should he?
Right. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. And also, by the way, Greg Popovich said to LaMarcus Aldridge last summer, you might want to trade. You're not getting a trade. Now, this is obviously a different scenario. Kawhi only having that year left on his deal sort of changes a lot of the equation here. And also the value of Kawhi Leonard and what he could bring back. One thing Pop told LaMarcus is like, hey, you can get me a great player, a Kevin Durant, he said to him, or anyone else, like a great exchange. He goes, I'll pack your bags. I'll drive you to the airport. I have the feeling the Spurs will get some pretty good offers for Kawhi Leonard, not Kevin Durant, but maybe Greg will be packing bags and driving to airports. Who knows? We'll see. Here's what The Jump recommends for today over on ESPN.com. Kevin Pelton explains, while many of the top prospects are big men, drafting centers is riskier than ever before. 3 of the top 5 prospects play the 4 or the 5. Interesting.